All right, and welcome. We are going to write a paper. Yeah. So, first, you will need to make sure that you have the proper headings. So, we are going to make sure that we are conforming to MLA standards here. 2, 3, 3, 5. And then we are going to have the date of what we got here. So it is, as of me recording this, the 29th of 2024. Now, if you've noticed right here, this is the big thing. We want to make sure that we hit paragraph and see this right here, this after. We want to make sure it's 0. Same thing with the before. We want to go down, make sure it's double. Booyah, there it is. Yes, I just said that. How embarrassing. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to have a title. That title can be as basic as the description of the paper, like this is a narrative paper, or this is a research assignment. It can also be something like this, where you have something creative like at the heart of it all, lessons from, I don't know, the bird guy at my window. I don't know. I don't know what that is, but we're going to put that. There we go. So then we want to make sure that we have our, start, and then we tab it and we begin. So here's what you can do. Every paper should start with an introduction. The intro should never be something like, a million years ago, people did this, right? So never a million years ago, or something like, there have always been people who write papers. First off, that's not true. Second off, the thing is that what this does is this creates a huge problem for you. The big problem it creates is that you now have to justify and prove all of this. So if you're starting from like a million years ago, Jojo Siwa, I don't even know really who that is, but I just saw a video essay on them and I thought that was really interesting. But the idea then is that you're looking at them and you're saying, like, a million years ago, Jojo Siwa has made music, which isn't true. But now you have to justify all of that. There have always been people who've written papers. You now have to justify that. So now you've just spent something that was supposed to be a passing comment, and now it becomes a pissing comment. So you don't want to do that. You end up wasting your time. So an introduction should be something that leads us into the scene, right? So we have something like, if we were to continue on with this bird guy example, we could say something like, and I'm just creating something off of the top of my head. So this is going to be remember, first drafts are bad drafts. They're rough drafts. They're vomit drafts. So you want them to be vomit bad. So because you just want to get the ideas out. So let's say something like, I have always wondered how the Wright brothers flew. Normally in an academic essay you wouldn't include this I, but I'm trying to come up with an example. And so this is what we got. So now, the point of our intro is to make it so that way, if you were to think of yourself standing in a quiet public place, like a library, You don't want to just shout out stuff. You've seen this before, right? You don't want to do that. Like that, you sound crazy if you do that. So instead, what you want to do is you want to think about if you were like on a first date, what would you say? How would you lead into some of the darker parts of yourself to test the waters, right? Like maybe you really enjoy some sort of anime or something that's embarrassing or whatever. Maybe you don't like Taylor Swift and you're trying to figure out how to go with that. So the first thing that like let's use that Taylor Swift analogy here. So let's say you are on a date and you are trying to figure out if they like T Swift or not. So that's our scenario. What do we need to do then? What do we need to do? Well, first off, we need to go through and intro our idea. So our idea is that, let's say, our idea is we do not like T Swift. So we need to figure out how that is, right? And I'm saying that we do not for this example because Taylor Swift is really popular. And so, like, if you want to see, like, are you on the popular team or the not popular team? So, how would we do that? Well, we would start with something like, I don't know, speaking of popular music, popular music in the 2020s has taken a turn towards nostalgia. So we've got that, comma, or trading in on past experiences, past positive experiences in order to acquire fans, views, and fame. Sometimes artists who are not relevant anymore are able to trade in on something they did a while ago and use it to bolster their fame or their, let's say, image back into the spotlight. All right. So now that we've got this right here is a good, it's a relatively good first draft introduction. We are setting up, right here, we are setting up an idea that we're going to talk about. We didn't say that this is exactly what we're going to talk about, but we're presenting it that. We now have introduced a little bit of a problem. And now we have given space for our thesis. So what is a thesis? It is the T. Your thesis is going to be the T, aka the gossip, that you are going to share and expand upon in the essay. Without this thesis, you do not have a paper. You need the T. Otherwise, our gossip is that popular music has taken a turn towards nostalgia. That's pretty cool. It's a pretty nice statement that we can make here. But now we need to point it, right? So if we were thinking about like that we don't like Taylor Swift, this right here gives us a great entrance into the person that we're on the date with, right? So remember, we're on a date and we're trying to figure out if they like T Swift or not. So how do we do that? We have introed this idea that we believe that music as of the current time is a part of nostalgia or trading in on past positive experiences in order to acquire stuff. So now we're saying, oh yeah, some artists who aren't relevant anymore, which, again, this is debatable and stuff, but at the time, right, before creating new music, a lot of the old music and the tour and all of that stuff was being re-released in different packages. So essentially, what we're trying to figure out is, does this person believe that this statement still applies to this person? Does it apply to Taylor Swift or does it apply to something else? So, right now, we've set up perfectly a position to get someone engaged in sharing something without us sharing anything, really. Now, we're going to go in for they've given their opinion a little bit, and now we feel comfortable enough to tell them what we think, right? So remember, our thesis here is, or our idea is, you are on a date and you are trying to figure out if they like T Swift or not. And we, for the purpose of this exercise, do not like Taylor Swift because Taylor Swift is popular and in the mainstream, right? And so we're trying to figure out, because we're like the cool guy, who only likes cool things, or whatever. So now what do we do? Well, the cool guy who likes only cool things has to figure out their point of view. So now we're in our thesis statement, right? So pop acts. No. Let's see here. Let's see here. Among those artists who have weaponized, using a big, that's debatable. I don't know if I should go there. That's pretty hyperbolic. But remember, first draft, bad draft. So we're gonna try and figure it out, right? Among those artists who have weaponized their back catalog maybe. I don't really want to. Yeah, we'll see. Among those artists who have weaponized their back catalog to gain new fans through old images is Taylor Swift. See, so now we have this. This is not yet a thesis. We are now heading into a transition into our thesis. So we've tested the waters, and now we're gonna make our claim. We're gonna flip it on them, right? We're gonna come out and say the thing. So now, our thesis, right? Because let's say we want to say that, like, I don't know, that like that T Swift is, I don't know, this basically, I have a feeling that this person would not get a date. But, and by this person I don't mean you, but like you know what I mean, right? This is all an example. So as we're going through this, we've got that Taylor Swift is one of those artists. So now what do? We're going to come up with a thesis. Our thesis, let's say our thesis has to include something about, so we've got to include about nostalgia. How our thesis is trying to answer the question, how, why, in what ways can we see? So these are the three questions that we are trying to answer at all times with our thesis. How, why, in what ways can we see? So if we are making a claim that Taylor Swift has weaponized her back catalog to create nostalgia, how would we present a how, a why, and an in what way? Taylor Swift or Swift. Let's just do Swift. Swift has used her tour to remind the public of her importance. Her re-releases to establish a cause to fight for, and has crafted a persona that demands that one know about previous work in order to understand current work. This is not good, but we're at least on our way, right? So remember, first draft, bad draft. So what we've got here is a thesis statement where we are creating what is, so this right here is our claim. These right here are now creating our map points. So we're saying that Taylor Swift is trying to use nostalgia. Taylor Swift uses nostalgia to gain fans and money through the use of her tour. Let's remind. So now we've got, what are our points? What are our points? Our points are 1, her tour. That's point 1. Her re-releases is point 2. And point 3, this knowing of the work. Now notice how I kind of structured it this way. This right here, so the tour walks through all of her eras, right? The eras tour. So let's look at that. If we were to turn this point into a paper to remind the public of her importance, so she walks through all of her eras in detail to show that she has evolved, but also to show how she is consistent in her hits. So this now establishes ethos. Cred. Yes, cred. You know, like Train, you know, that great band that said, I'm so gangsta, I'm so thug. That guy, you know. So if we look at it, what she's doing here is she's establishing that she makes all the hits and that she's done it completely. So this could take us to like 3 pages essentially. If we played it right, we could walk through so much. We could walk through how this establishes her ethos. We could walk through how the hits have cultural impact. We could talk about the lyrics and aesthetics of the tour, the economic impact. We could talk about all these things, right? The other thing that we can do then is all of this sets up point 2. What was point 2? Point 2 for that paper, or from our thesis here, was that her re-releases establish a cause for us to fight for. Now, why would that be important? If we look at this, and this is what's like genius about this whole thing, is that all of these right here from the tour are also then being re-released back to the public, but as Taylor's version. Now, why would that be important? It creates this narrative, right, of support Taylor Swift. If you don't, you are for the corruption of the bad guy people things, right? So if we establish an ethos here, we're like, oh yes, this ethos, awesome. And then we establish that these lyrics and the aesthetics and the cultural impact and the economic impact of all of these songs, well, then why would we not want to be on the side of the person who made it, right? It's genius, right? So now we could spend almost like 3 or 4 pages on just this topic alone about how the re-releases actually reveal corruption within the industry, or how these bad people are allowed to exploit workers and artists and their work. It creates this huge, incredible, awesome paper. And then our point 3, and I tend to structure things by strongest point first, the one I really want to talk the most about. So I really want to talk about the Eras Tour. And then my second point, I really like, I want to talk about this, but I'm not as strong. My third point is really weak. Not gonna lie, So, what was my third point? My third point was that we need to understand her current work. This through her old work. This actually could possibly tie into the use of the Eras Tour, which again, this is a first rough draft, right? I'm just coming up with this as I'm talking to you with this. So, what we have here is we have kind of a weak sauce point. We could possibly instead reframe it and reorganize it and recontextualize it by talking about the Easter eggs and current work with established indie acts. In fact, that might actually be better. So the nostalgia here is for the good old elder emos and hipsters who were like, T Swift stinks, boo, right? This move is to take down those people and to make them realize that the new T-Swift is actually not just a pop superstar, but a true artist. That would be the better point. See how just by establishing just this, all of this follows? All of it. So when I'm looking at your papers, what I'm looking for is, do you have an amazing first paragraph? Do you have a thesis? If you do, then you're probably going to have a rockin' paper. And we'll talk about that in part 2.